everybody. Welcome back to a painting segment, a demonstration with Laurel Hart today. I'm glad to be back with you, and today I am going to be painting a really exciting subject that I love to do. This is a scene from some of the red rock in southern Utah. I live in Utah, and I hope I won't make anybody upset if I say we are the king of red rock here in Utah. I love all of the national parks that we have in our state. I have visited them multiple times, and I love painting the beautiful colors of the red rock. There are places sometimes where you can get down in these canyons, and you have the sun coming down in between these two walls of rock, and it just bounces back and forth in the most beautiful, beautiful color you can imagine. And I'm going to be painting some of that today. The scene that I have picked is Arches National Park, which is one of my very favorites. And this is, I believe, Double Arch. And one of the great things about being able to paint rock is you've got a little more leeway to not be maybe so correct with your depiction or your drawing. It's really a kind of maybe an easy subject to start with. And I'm going to try to keep this very colorful, as I always say, and try to keep the shadows luminous and beautiful. In my photograph, I have, you can see that the shadows are probably much darker in the photo than they really are in real life. And also, I want to point out that there are some very small figures that are going to be included in the figure. I like doing that with these red rock paintings because they show the scale of how big these massive rock formations are. And so I do like including figures in the paintings for that reason. I really love this particular photograph. I've cropped it in a way that seems most aesthetically pleasing for my design. I like how it's got this this white lead-in to the area of focus back in here where we get to the figures and the arches. And it's just a really nice natural path for the eye to follow into the main part of the subject. So I'm going to try to really follow that and pretty well keep to the design that I've already formatted the way I want. I do a lot of my designing right within the photograph, cropping it, moving the center of interest around until I get it to where I'm pleased with the design and can work with it that way. So let's begin. I'm going to start with, I think I'll begin with getting the sky in first. And it's just going to be a very flat wash. There are no clouds in this sky. So I'm going to do just a little bit of, I think, cerulean blue, and just tone it just a touch with a little bit of my transparent oxide red. Actually, I'm going to pull in a little bit of ultramarine too, make it a little bluer. And I'm just going to kind of slop this on. I'm not really too concerned about this sky because it's just such a flat wash. And usually the sky will be darker at the top and get a little bit lighter as it comes down to the horizon. So I'll maybe try to do that a little bit. I know there are people that really do wonderful things with nice graded washes, and I'm not going to worry about that in this little bit of sky that I have here. Okay, so that's my sky. It's in there pretty quick. And then my red rock, this time around, I am going to not worry quite so much about having a triad of all three, a triad of red, yellow, and blue. I'm going to stay with mostly just warms in this to begin with here. And I know from being there that these colors are even maybe a little bit more saturated. So I'm going to work with very saturated paint in using some of these beautiful oranges, pinks, and a little bit of violet. There's a little bit of violet in there, especially when we come into the shadows in there. But like I said, this is kind of a fun subject because you can be a little, maybe a little more casual with what you're putting in. Okay, and I'm going to even saturate that up a little bit more. You can always come back in and tone this down with the second wash over it. I'm probably going to come in and cover that area that I said I wasn't really going to use the cools in this, but it just feels really cool right there, so I did. And I think I maybe want a little more rosiness to it. Just get this beautiful vibration with that orange rock against the blue sky with the complements like that. It's just incredibly fun. And so you can see I'm just really painting around all of my areas that are in sunlight. I say that so much, people are, I'm sure, sick of it, but I want to make sure and let those really beautiful little strips of light where they are be shining through. And maybe not have quite such a hard edge there. There's a lot of places where it will be really hard edged, but some not quite so hard. Then I'm going to be coming down into kind of the foliage area there, so that's what I'm sort of stopping there for. And over in here, okay, I've got this really important little piece of white right in there that I want to make sure and preserve. But this down in here is just really, really, really saturated color in there, and I want to make sure I keep that. It's almost a pure cadmium red or orange in there. You get the sun on that and it just is the most gorgeous thing ever. And I've graded it back a little bit there with that by hitting some of that blue in there. guess I actually am working with a triad. I've got a red, a yellow, and a blue going. And there's these gorgeous purples as they play up into the shadow areas there. There's nothing like the cadmium colors for getting this red rock, but I understand they're quite poisonous. And I didn't want to cover that little band of white right there. Those are really important little whites. So, not going to. And this over in here is white, but there's just a tiny hint of color in it, and I want to keep that on there. Ah, not my figure. And I'm going to use even a little bit of the transparent oxide red and my Rossi, and I'm just going to punch all these wonderful warms in here. Still that beautiful, beautiful red. I want to, right in there, you can see how concentrated that is right down in there. Then I can kind of start drawing a little bit of the detail over in here. Nothing is as great of an artist as nature. All that abstraction in there is just, oh, fabulous. And especially on these these little overcroppings here, you get that reflected light that is just pure color under there. Trying to really get that in there. Whoops, that wasn't supposed to be gone over. This has got a bit of a violet to it up there in the shadow. I missed a little bit of my white in there, but like I said, it doesn't really matter when you're doing these rocks. You can kind of be the boss of them and tell them what to do. Then as this starts to dry over here, I can come in and be putting more, little more detail of darks down in there and crevices in the rocks and things like that. Okay, there's my other figure. I'm kind of going to be setting those guys off with a really nice dark down in here. And it's kind of nice to let this, let these crevicey things bleed a little bit so you don't really have too hard of edges on those things. Pull a little bit of that down to give a little bit of texture on the rock. Not too much though, I don't want to overdo that. And I'll even go to this is burned umber to get some really deep stuff in here. Just let that kind of sit there and do what it wants to for a minute. Okay, and let's see where I am. Back in here, I want that little tiny sky color, but very, very pale. Because we're farther down in the sky there, and it's very light. And about as dark as I can get is a ultramarine with a burnt umber or a okay, so these little rock crevices are coming in here pretty nicely. Okay, and then back over in here, even though this is back in the distance, it's out in the sun, so it's really in some pure color back there. And we've got some really pure pink back in there too. And I'm just painting these tiny little pieces so you can tell this is, hopefully you can tell this is in the distance back there. Anyway, let's hope you can. Okay, but that little thing down in there has to... Okay. Some stronger color and under here too. But it's kind of interesting how the rock is really kind of striped through here. And if I can, I'd like to capture a little bit of that. Okay, I want to start putting in a little bit of that little green bush behind the figures there. I want to let that bleed up into the orange background, so I'm putting it in while that's wet. Okay. And that'll be really set off when I come back in with some dark around that. Just want to make sure I save my 3 little figures' heads in there. Alrighty. Okay, I've got another little area here that's dark. I'll come back and get that darker. So what I'm starting to do as I'm going back over this is bringing in more layers, which just means that I'm adding more dimension as I go. And then this is kind of a grayish green, but as I remember it, it was pretty actually pretty green. So I'm gonna try to kind of keep that green in there. And the top of the bushes where that sun is hitting them is gonna be pretty pale there. But in this particular painting, these shadows are appearing to be very warm, so I'm gonna come know if I want it quite that dark, but maybe. So there's that rock there. And then this, a lot of this is sagebrushy stuff, so I'm sure it is kind of lighter. And don't worry about this edge along here because I'll come back and fix that when I come back with some lighter lights in there. Okay, so I'm just getting in the essence of the shapes of these bushes here and leaving that really light top on it. And there's some elements of the red shadow back in here too, so I'm going to put a little bit of that in across through there. And lose that edge for a minute. We'll see if I need it back. There, I do want to put some purple in there. So I'll mix myself a little purple up here. I'll define more to do with these bushes over in here. In a little bit, but I want to just kind of get the whole whole essence of this thing down. So it seems like there's going to be about that dark of a value over there. Oh, I put little highlights out for that bush there, but then what I want to do here is just come in with that warm shadow and just pull that color right on down into it. Should observe those little whites right in there, and some right down in there too. I want a cleaner purple, so I should quit mixing up near the orange. Okay, that's more of the value that looks like should be there. I'll get that down in this bottom area. And I'll come back in with some darks, but I'm really liking this pattern of shadows that just are coming on over into there. Okay. This still here. And I think I'll hopefully be able to tie this together when the time comes here. I'm still feeling like I need a bit of a stronger green down in there. And again, I'm going to come back around there and paint that in a much darker value. So let's get us a really nice dark green. We're back in there, a little bit of cad. And I'm kind of wanting to put that tree in back here too, at least a suggestion of it. So let's get a little bit of those branches in. And then see, it's this background color that is going to set off this grass in front here. So that's what's going to make that work. And that's why I left all of this light down in here. And then continuing on over into there. Then we've got a little bit of the kind of that pretty gray. Coming down into here. We're going to go back up into here now and start getting the values right back in there. As you can see, it's much, much darker back in through here. But I'm feeling like I want to do it on wet and wet back here so that it's soft. Soft against these darker shadows, and it looks like it's I'm going to say just kind of a nice purple back in there. I want to be careful that I kind of let this show that that's another outcropping of rock or whatever up in there. So I'm just kind of trying to play with cool and warm in here. But without making those shadows dead back there. That's just such a common problem, which I have too. And I might want to come in there with, well, that cadmium orange is really sticky. I don't know what's wrong with that. And not really leave those edges hard there. Just kind of pop a little bit of that color in there. As this comes all around over here, and then this is going to paint behind what's so that we see this foliage down in here set off. I didn't want that quite that dark up there. Okay, we're beginning to see the sun really glowing in there. And that's what it's all about. It's just these areas of darker shadow really set that off. I'm going to try down in here to leave a few of these little tree branches so we can tell there's a tree. And the way this might be kind of silly to say, but the way these rocks are formed is through wind and water. And so you can kind of duplicate the look of this rock that was, formed by this dripping stuff by the way you use your paint. And on the edge of this shape up here, we're going to kind of show that it's rock with, little indentations and all this stuff in it up in here. And there's some right up on the top there. But so you can get this feeling of all of that drippy stuff that's happened over all those years of these wonderful formations developing. I sound like I'm a geologist and I'm not. But it's interesting to learn how these things were formed. And if you haven't been to this park, as much as I don't want to give the good secret out, you need to come see it. Okay, and I'm still needing to come across here. You just don't want to overdo these layers, which can happen pretty easily. So I need to be careful that I don't keep doing too much in here, but so far I've kept it pretty loose and juicy. And where these edges of stuff in shadow meet, you're going to get a nice little dark line in there. Okay, and still I want to, I can still see that I'm needing a stronger dark down in here. That's probably the darkest dark of the painting in there, so I need to really give that some strength. And right over there, keep that really dark where that really light little place is there. Then that's going to tell a good story. I want to come back and pick up these little drips. Okay. And I probably want to set the edge of the arch off right there with some dark stuff coming down here. Still not quite as deep as it needs to be. Let's go with a warmer though. Getting too purple. Okay, I'm feeling myself getting a little bit to the muddy side, so I need to back off, be careful. I want to keep this really, really clean. Okay, let's leave that for a minute and come down and do a little bit more in our foreground. Okay, so this is helping me down in here a little bit to kind of see what I'm doing in this foreground. That's the dark I need there. And then I've got to put a dark in over here where just kind of soften that edge a little bit in there. Okay, maybe just get the figures in here now. stripes are something that can't really be missed as nature, so hopefully you can tell we've got these figures here. They're actually my son-in-law, and my husband. My son-in-law's got my grandson on his back. Putting these little tiny figures in are just really little dobs of shadow. And then I want to take that just down into this green across here where they are too. So I'm just back in here, just kind of putting in these little shapes of the, I don't know, they're just kind of showing the curve of the landscape there, really. But that's ending up pretty dark right down in there. Okay. And the shadow side of this bush over here. And these are, again, just kind of showing the shape of the landfall here. I'm just separating these little masses of bushes out here as I see them. Okay. Okay, then in here I've got I want to really set this bush off here with this dark. Okay, and then we need to anchor this little bush down with some darks down in here. Painting around a little bit on negative painting again. Then we just need to put some little darks in there to give that bush there's just not that much to having to do to describe stuff. And it's mostly in putting in those little darks that things begin to stand out and become identifiable. Okay. Still needs a bit of dark. Just right in there. Okay, so that's pretty well set up. Now I need another. And notice I'm again using all of the colors of my, okay, this right here I think is about where I am. So let's put in the dark of this bush, and it's going to define this bush in front of it. And then things begin to make sense once you put and your eye will start to see it as you're trying to learn to paint it. you'll begin to see these things as you're going along. And it's still right in there. It's just a really dark. Okay, so then we've got this bush sort of defined. And I like how abstract it's staying here. And now we're going to kind of see this come to life as this bush gets in down here. And we just see this stuff in through here is now what we want to kind of leave out or leave showing. Okay. I feel like I need to warm that green up a little bit here and there. That's got a little too cold. Okay, now I want to pull that down into this down in here so I just have that kind of coming down into that beautiful shadow area. And then I'll kind of paint, leaving some of these little areas of light underneath that we see there. Okay. Okay, yeah. I'm liking that. Okay, so we need to clear up what's going on up here a little bit. Just still having a little bit of a hard time telling what's going on in here. But it doesn't need too much. And up in here, I think we need one more layer of bushes to set us off back there. And that should actually probably be the rock. shadow that comes down in there. And sets that up. Oh yeah, I'm liking what's happening up in there, yeah, a lot. Okay, and then this. I need to punch a little bit of a dark over in here. Okay, so we're coming near to the end here. I'm can see some places where I still need darker darks. And my paints need a good spray. They're starting to get tacky. Probably should clean my palette too, but we'll keep going. Anyway, this area down in here, where I want to set off this figure. Should be a little bit darker. Okay. And now what I'm doing here is just kind of blending out some of the hard edges. Can you see what's happening? I'm blending that paint in a little bit. And then over in here I need I need some of this. Trying to give this grass kind of a bottom part to it, and it's not letting me very well. I can see this one little bush over here is still that needed that. This might need a little bit of just a few little indications of roots and branches down in here. So you can tell that it is a bush. I don't know if I overdid that or not. Okay, then over in here, we've got to anchor this down too. That's not doing a very good job. We're getting there though, I think. But this painting is a pretty good example of painting in these layers. That's a little bit too wet still to do these contours on, but I am going to come back now with a tree or something back here to set this. Yeah, to set that off somehow. Okay, now I want not such a hard edge there. And then okay. I'm just going to come back here and be working in some of the detail stuff back in here. Okay, I need to be careful. I don't want to get too dark back there, but it still just felt like that needed to be set off back in there. And I think it was right. punch this one out here a little bit too. And then right down in here, this is really good and dark. And we've got some just kind of punching in now the final darks here and there. And we're about going to have it, I think. Hmm. I also still can't get this dark enough over here. I don't know what my problem is, but that has got to still have a darker, dark. There. These last little things that I'm doing are just little detail things to still make it look like there's texture on these rocks. But I don't want to overdo it. Okay, then I'm just trying to put a little wash over this to put that into the distance a little bit more. And I do want you to be able to tell that that is the sun, the sky back here, so I'm going to put that blue in again. And then over here, I've got a little job to do on a bush. Okay, well, I think I've about finished this up. There's a few more things that I would like to do with this, and I'll probably do those a little bit later, and then we'll show you the final product. But I think this is essentially about done here. I'll probably do a little bit of detail work back into these rocks and finish this tree here. It's still a little bit unfinished and needs some work. But I think this was pretty successful, and I'm pretty happy with what we've done. So until next time, thank you very much for joining us, and I do hope you'll take the time sometime to visit our Red Rock country in Utah. Thank you, and we'll see you again on our next segment.